We're up, Leedz. Welcome. Season 2. A very special guest, an interview with Mr. Speech of Arrested Development. Shout out Weapon ESP. Hold on, I'm just typing out here. Kane Major in the building. All right, get my bearings. Looks like Mr. Speech is here. Hold on. See if we can get him going.
What's up, friend?
Hello.
Yo,
How are you?
I'm doing great. I'm doing really good. You know, I'm actually glad we were able to get on this easily because my IG has been crazy for a while. Like for a while now, if I follow somebody, it will unfollow like immediately, and I had nothing to do with it.
That's crazy.
Yeah, so it's been a problem trying to get on people's IG lives for some reason, and I don't get it. So anyway, I'm glad it worked.
What's up, man? I was having the same issue with my phone. It was like causing all this weird sound stuff. I had to get a new phone.
Okay,
So I hope I sound all right.
Yeah, I might have to do that because it's just been crazy. I don't even get it. I don't get it.
Well, I'd like to welcome everybody to the Leedz Entertainment Podcast, brought to you by the Chubby Chickpea Restaurant, with a very special guest today, Speech of Arrested Development. Welcome. I'm glad we were finally able to do this. We tried doing this in the holidays.
Yeah,
Both
I got
of us
sick. Did you know that?
So did I.
Yeah, I got sick. COVID. Yeah.
And how'd it go?
It was tough. It was a bad run. It was a bad run.
Yeah.
That was really tough. Really tough.
Were you in the hospital and everything?
No, I didn't go to the hospital, thank God. Stayed at home. My wife was not sick, so she was able to help care for me. My children got sick too. So it was everybody but my wife was sick, which is crazy. Yeah, but it
was
how was yours?
Same thing here, man. Everybody got sick. I kind of got sick. I felt like I was fighting something, but I didn't test positive.
Okay.
My whole house got it though.
Oh wow. So how did you like stay quarantined from everybody? You know.
I did it.
And you still never got sick, man.
I was like, I'm gonna get it, and then I never got it.
Wow.
And I was lucky.
Yeah, you were. That's great.
You know what I claim it to? It was because I worked 18 years in a nightclub.
Uh-huh. And your body's able to fight off any germs, like.
Yeah, and I bring that up because you were brought up in a nightclub or a live music venue, right? As a kid, your dad owned one, right?
Yeah, back then it was called discos. My dad owned a disco, and yeah, I grew up from like age 13 to 18. I was in a disco probably, I don't know, 4 nights out of the week.
And was that like live music or just like dancing club?
Mainly a club,
right.
DJ. Every blue moon, my dad would bring in, like he brought in the Stylistics, which was a highlight, but he probably only brought in like 2 live bands the whole time that he ran that club. So, yeah.
So you were around music early.
Oh, definitely. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
My mom played organ. My grandmother on my mom's side played organ in the church. And then I loved Michael Jackson, the Jackson 5 in particular. When they had a TV show that used to come on every Saturday, I used to rock that. I used to watch it. And so I fell in love with music through Michael Jackson. And then later my dad owned this nightclub and I started DJing. And one of his DJs, a brother named Kenny B, taught me how to spin. And that was the old school spinning. So like music fading out, fading back in. And then I learned how to DJ hip hop wise from listening to records and listening to mixtapes from New York. Like I used to listen to, Grandmaster Flash Adventures on the Wheels of Steel. And then like, somebody said, Speech, you have to do an album where you're singing. The world needs to embrace. Oh, actually, thank you. Yo, thank you. That's my man. Dude, you got to pick up the joint, man. I did the expansion record. But anyway, I wanted to say right quick that I learned how to DJ from, watching some of the greats. Grand Mixer DST on the Grammys was rocking with Herbie Hancock.
Yeah.
Stuff like that. I mean, I learned a lot. Chip, my
Yeah.
man. Yeah, man. Shout out to Chip, legendary vocalist.
This club was in Atlanta, right? You're from Atlanta, right?
No, I'm from Milwaukee, and my
Milwaukee,
dad's nightclub was in Milwaukee. It's called the Fox Trap.
Yeah. Milwaukee.
Milwaukee.
Milwaukee, Wayne's World. I don't know if you got the reference.
No,
but,
I didn't.
Yeah, it's fine. It's fine. That's what he says. He calls it Milwaukee. So that were you exposed to a lot of craziness as a kid being in the club? Because you just talked to me about your mom being in church and then your dad owning a nightclub. That's pretty. From someone who's worked at a nightclub, like that's. I mean, there's a lot of stuff goes down. As a kid, you were exposed to was it crazy or was it just cool?
Yeah, I know it was cool. It was all of those things. So I would see people doing drugs. I would see, older relationships and, women getting hurt by their men, women getting beat up by their men. At the end of the night, there was times when there was women that had gotten, slapped around and she stayed behind. The man left the club. And so the lights came back on and my dad's dealing with that. My dad used to hire gang members to do security at the club because Milwaukee was unfortunately ravished with certain gangs. And he would hire gang members from each gang to rock the club so that neither of the gangs would really take over. And so it was a lot of stuff that I learned, just at a young age. But not only that, my father and mother were entrepreneurs. So my dad owned a corn roasting business at the largest music festival in the world called Summerfest. This is in Milwaukee, ironically. And at Summerfest, it's a 12 noon to 12 midnight festival. And so I would see, prostitutes getting beat up by their pimps. I would see people having sex by the lake. It's like, all types of crazy stuff as a kid. You know what I mean? So, yeah, just being exposed to a lot of things.
Right. So when's the transition to Atlanta? When does that come? Is that college?
1987. I graduated high school. I left the very week I graduated high school. I left that very week. I moved to Atlanta. Yeah, I wanted to get away from Milwaukee. It was violent. There was a lot of my friends getting wrapped up in the crazy, pathways and a lot of killings and stuff like that. So yeah.
So 1988 though, you form, is that right? Arrested Development starts
well, pretty much.
88?
To be honest, the first week I got to Atlanta, I started to create a group, and we weren't called Arrested Development at the time, but it's like I put up a flyer the first day I got to because I went to the Art Institute of Atlanta. And so the first day I got there, I put up a flyer saying I'm looking for a DJ. I wanted to start rhyming more. I was DJing, obviously, and I wanted to rhyme more. And it was cool because my man Headliner, who at the time, is just his real name is Tim. Tim was looking at the flyer, and we became cool. I talked to him that day, and we became really cool. And, things just started to grow from that point. Farida's on. What's up, Farida? One of the ADM members is on right now. Shout out to you, Free. Much love to you.
What was the name of the first group? I got to know.
We first were called, I think it was either Disciples of a Lyrical Rebellion, or we were or Secret Society. I forget which one was first or second. So we had three names at first. It was Disciples of a Lyrical Rebellion, Secret Society, then Arrested Development, and we of course stuck with Arrested Development. Yeah.
I always love hearing people's first groups or first rap names. It's always it's so entertaining.
It is.
Yours is right up there.
It is, yeah.
Speaks to the time we were in.
No doubt.
So when does the group expand into what it becomes? Because we're talking from 88 to the first album's 92.
Yeah.
What happened? How do you turn it into this basically hip hop collective band?
Yeah.
Which was unheard of at the time commercially. Like you didn't see that. How did that all come about?
Yeah, I was very inspired by a few things. One was Jamaican culture, because I used to, I went to Jamaica and I got inspired to put an old person in our group based on how I saw the young people and the old people like rocking with each other in Jamaica at parties and stuff. And then second of all, they had sound systems in Jamaica. So a lot of times the DJ was doing this thing and then people would just come on and do their thing here and there. Soul to Soul was a group that was doing well out of the UK. And they had a similar concept where Jazzy B was the DJ. And then you had people all around Jazzy B, different singers and, you know, different people sort of collaborating on music. So all of that was inspiration. We started doing clubs, me and Headliner the DJ, me on the Rhymes. And we started doing clubs throughout Atlanta. And we had about, I'd say 10 or 12 dancers at the time. We had African drummers that would come on the stage with us and rock African drums. We had poets that would come and do a little poetry. We had live painters that would come and do live painting. And it was just this vibe. And after some time, certain group members started really meeting us at every show. I shouldn't say group members, they were just people. And they were meeting us at every show. And these people started to become sort of part of what we would do. And by the time we got a record deal, we had probably about 20 people on stage with us at any given moment. And we had
they
to
weren't
tell
just
the
hype.
label,
They weren't just hype men. They weren't just hype men. They were actually doing something. They were just standing there.
In fact, by that time, you know, we had too many people to take on a tour because it was too expensive. And so they said, you know, why don't you break this down into just the people that you absolutely need to have on the record and on the tour. And so we did that and broke it down. And it was me, Babo, Jay, Razadon, Ishi, Airly Tari, Headliner. And that's it, I think, and myself. So
is that only 7 or 8?
I think that's 6, I think. So I might have miscounted, but me, Headliner.
I feel like there was more. I feel like there was more in
I
the performances I see.
You know what? By the second album, by Zinga Lamaduni, I added DJ Kimmit, Ajile, Nadira. So yeah, I mean, we just kept getting bigger, and I think the real reason was that we left a lot of people behind. So like, you know, by the time we released the first album, there was a sister named Paulette that was doing vocals. She did the vocals on Mama's Always on Stage, the singing vocals. And then there was a sister named Mawakana who did vocals on People Every Day. So we were just trying to bring these people into the fold as this stuff was starting to get successful. You know what I mean?
Right. So the first album, 3 years, 5 months, and 2 days in the life, 1992. Talk about making this album, because it ends up being this huge commercial smash, sells 6 million copies. Am I correct?
Worldwide, yeah.
Worldwide. This is when I start listening to hip hop. I'm about 12, 13 years old, and you guys are everywhere. I can't turn on. I can't escape you on MTV.
Yeah.
Talk about making that album. I mean, did you guys know what you were working with when you were doing it? What was the process like? I'm very curious about that.
Well, it was a few phases because, you know, I produced most of the record. I wrote most of the rhymes. So, you know, I was a dude in my bedroom a lot. So, like, I would have a Tascam cassette recorder, and I would sort of create these songs as demos, really, on this Tascam cassette recorder. I think it was an 8-track, maybe a 4-track back then. And, you know, so all the songs were basically done in the room, and it was now just a matter of trying to repeat that or get that energy again on a record. And so we went to a really nice studio in Milwaukee. It was right outside of Milwaukee, called Tracks 32. And Tracks 32 was our opportunity to really do it more professionally. We were able to choose mics for various vocals. Like I used one mic on the song You, then I used on People Every Day. And, you know, so it was just really having engineers involved and not just me doing everything from a recording standpoint. And then, of course, the group, we all went down together. It was really fun, actually. It was like a lot of, because we already knew what we were doing. Now, mind you, we came from a mindset of, you don't go to the studio with nothing in your mind. Like, it was too expensive. I mean, we were broke. Yeah. So to go in the studio with just, let's try to create something, that wasn't a thing we did back then. we already had everything mapped out, and we were just basically executing it and trying to recreate it better. Like anything that we felt was not as good as it could have been on the Tascam tape version, we would take it to that next level on the real version. Yeah, it was cool. It was very, very, and it was also just like for many of the group members, it was their first time ever being in the studio. For me, it
Right.
wasn't, because I had a group called Attack before this that I did, and so for me it wasn't. But I mean, in fact, that's why I knew about Tracks 32 Studio, because I had already done something there. So yeah, but it was still very much a new experience for all of us to be on a label, for instance, to be able to record an entire album. I had never done an entire album. I'd done some singles with Attack. So yeah, it was dope.
How did you get the deal? Did you have like a single? Like what got you the
Yeah,
deal?
so we Jermaine Dupri's father's name Michael Malden. And Michael Malden was a local dude managing, people, and really I think he was driving trucks for Brick, the really famous R&B group. And so long story short, he wanted to get into management. He loved what we were doing. He heard it from my man Ian Burke, who's a legend here in Atlanta. And he started shopping our music around. It took him a while, but we were able to get a label to, sign on. It was Chrysalis Records. They had Blondie at the time. They had a subsidiary rap label, and on that rap label they had Gangstar. They would later sign D'Angelo. So they were just trying to sort of get their foot in the door, and I think that's why they took a chance on a group like Arrested Development.
So when the album drops, is the singles already out before the album's out? I don't remember. Like what came out
actually,
first?
yeah, we were first dropped. I mean, we were first signed to a single deal. So the single
was the
Mr.
first
Window.
single? Yeah.
Mr. Window back with Natural on the B-side. And Mr. Window, it never came out as a single first because during that time period, my grandmother passed away, and then my brother died that same week. And so I wrote the song Tennessee. And I wrote that because it was the last place I saw my grandmother and my brother, was at her funeral. So when I wrote that song, I was in an extremely emotional state. And so I asked the label, or maybe I even I forced them in a sense, like, I want to release this record first. And that ended up being our first single, Tennessee.
Which is a huge hit. You know what I mean? Like
huge,
one of the greatest, one of the most classic, greatest hip hop songs ever.
Yeah,
and it still knocks today. It doesn't sound dated. You can put it on whenever and still rings. You know what I mean? And that's almost 30 years old, right?
Yeah.
That's crazy.
It is 30 years old.
That's quite the accomplishment.
Yeah, it's 31 years old. And
okay.
Now it is, because this year, the 3 years, 5 months, 2 days in that Life of album turns 30 this year.
Right.
And so that's the single was out just about. It was out the year before, but only a few months the year before. Yeah.
I remember you talking about it in the Rhyme or Reason documentary.
Yeah.
Where Prince you sampled Prince, and he let that joint go all the way to number one, and then he was like, "You owe me some money."
Exactly right. Man, let me tell you, man, Prince was shrewd.
That must have hurt.
It did hurt at first. The record was a hit at this time. So I got a call from Prince's office, and he wanted $100,000, and all I used was the word Tennessee. Like, I literally just Tennessee, and that was it. And it's just like, he wanted $100,000, and I thought that was ridiculous at the time, but it was nothing I could do about it, because he had the right to pull it off the shelves. He had a right to take publishing for it. Like, he could have owned part of the song if he wanted to. So later on, as I started to learn more about the business, I really realized that was a break. And I met Prince, and so I realized he really did us a favor in a sense. Like, he got $100,000, but the record made millions of dollars. So I mean, it's all relative. It's just perspective. But at the time, I thought it was crazy.
Yeah, did you stop listening to Prince records for a while? You're like, I'm not listening to any Prince.
Nah, I didn't. Because, I mean, I'll be honest, Prince, Prince is my favorite artist ever, and
I figured that.
yeah, he is, man. And it's like I had sampled "Play in the Sunshine," another song of his from the double album "Sign of the Times," and that "Play in the Sunshine" was supposed to be on a song "Children Play with Earth," and so we tried to get permission for that. And Prince was actually anti-sampling at that time. He was very anti-hip hop in the sense of how it was created. You know, I think Chuck D might have helped him get hip to what hip hop really was, and that it wasn't, you know, a lazy man thing or something. It was art, you know, and yeah. So he hit us for 50% of the record, "Children Play with Earth," and I took the sample off, like in the midnight hours, like right before the record was about to be delivered to the label. I went back in, and back in these days, this is before Pro Tools or Ableton Live. So, you know, when you have to recall a mix, it's a lot of people that get involved. You have to turn all the knobs to the exact place that the mix was. You take pictures of all the outboard gear, the EQs, all of this stuff, and, you know, you redo a mix. And the version that's on the album is the version without Prince's sample, because I didn't want to pay 50% of the record, you know, for this small sample.
So the album's out. It's a huge smash. You're number one everywhere. 3 singles did all 3 singles like go number one?
They
like
did on
people,
certain
Wendell
charts,
in Tennessee,
like,
right? 3 number one singles, correct?
All 3 went, I believe, to if I remember correctly, to number 1 on the rap and R&B charts. I forget which one went number 1 on the pop charts, and Tennessee was number 3 when Prince called on the pop charts. So, yeah. But it was already number 1 on the rap charts and on the R&B charts.
What's that feel like?
Outstanding, amazing. It feels, because you know, it was my first record. It was the group's first record. It was, and so I'm speaking for myself when I say how it felt. Like, you know, it was so many layers to it. You know, Tennessee came from a very personal spot. And for that to be our first single, like the flagship song of the group, and then for it to do so extremely well, I mean, you know, VH1 would name it, you know, one of the best songs ever written in hip hop. I mean, the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame it's one of the 500 best songs, not just hip hop songs, but period. You know, so like, when you get those kind of accolades on your first trip out, you know, your first time around the block, it's overwhelming, and it feels obviously amazing. You feel accepted, and you feel, you know, encouraged. And but the double-edged sword of that is, by the second album, you feel scared, because it's like, how am I gonna, you know what I'm saying, like, match this? How are we gonna beat this? And you start getting in your head a little bit. So it was a double-edged sword, but it was still amazing.